Searchlight sweeps the black water, second pass, closer this time. 3 shapes wade the shallows toward China. A man, a woman, a child held above the current. Your radio crackles, waiting on one word from you. Wire cuts a cold line across your knuckles. Somewhere behind your ribs, a boy who once counted ration grains is still standing in your boots. Say it, or don't. The current doesn't care either way. Rewind. None of that exists yet. You're 11, ankle deep in flooded rice you don't own, on land assigned to your family by a class you didn't choose. A plain tin badge sits on your chest, the same one everyone here wears. Official ration, 700 grams a day. Real ration, this month, 4. Your mother, son, he hasn't eaten today, so you could. You've never once thought about the river at the edge of the map. You will. Your family's one room smells of boiled cabbage and kerosene. The portrait corner dusted twice a day because inspectors check. Sonny coughs through the thin wall, a sound getting worse by the season. Songbun put your family in the wavering class 2 generations before you were born. A grandfather's choice, never yours, and it still decides where you live, learn, and marry. Therefore, you already know the one way up. Your father worked this same paddy 15 years before the 90s hunger the country calls the arduous march took him. The official toll near 250,000, outside estimates running past 3 million. Nobody in your village argues which number is true out loud. Grief here is a private transaction. Don't cry at the funeral. Crying draws exactly the attention your family can't afford twice. Once a week, the whole village kneels in rows for Sengwal Chonghua, self-criticism, then criticism of a neighbor, out loud, in public. You confess a small failure of your own. A woman 2 rows up confesses her son's laziness and means every word, because meaning it is the only proof that keeps her family fed today. Wanting out of this room is easy. Leaving is the one thing nobody in the wavering class has ever actually done. Party Secretary OM keeps a portrait of both leaders behind his desk and a file on every household in the county behind his eyes. He recommends you for candidate membership. Extraordinary loyalty. He calls the harvest numbers you quietly falsified last spring to keep the village fed. 3 million names carry this card out of 25 million people. Starting today, yours might be one more. Candidacy means a year of study sessions in a cold hall. Jewish philosophy read aloud until the words stop meaning anything at all. Then it means a duty nobody mentions in the recruitment speech. Your own in Minbin, 20 households, all of them now technically yours to watch. Secretary OM finds you after, close enough that no one else hears him. The wall has ears younger than you. Never say a name you're not prepared to lose. Your first report is 3 sentences about a neighbor's radio. Tune some nights past curfew to a frequency that isn't state approved. You don't know what happens to him after you hand the paper in. Your hands are steady writing it. That's the part that will keep you up later once you're honest enough with yourself to let it. 3 nights later, the radio man's apartment sits dark, door sealed with a strip of paper nobody dares peel off. His wife stops attending Sengwal Chonghua. Then she stops existing on the roll at all. The way people here simply stop being mentioned. Nobody asks where. Asking is its own confession. You wrote 3 sentences. A family disappeared. The math of this life is now impossible to pretend you don't understand. Full membership, finally, a small office, a title, a wage of roughly $30 a month that wouldn't feed a family for a week on its own. The market fills the rest, unofficially, the way it does for everyone smart enough to look away from it at the right moments. You've learned to look away. You've also learned exactly how much that skill is worth. The provincial building runs on forms nobody reads twice, stamps that outweigh the paper they land on, and a chain of favors so old no one remembers who started it. A resettlement request crosses your desk for a family with the wrong song bun and the right amount of rice to offer you. Approve it. Don't write down why. The machine doesn't need you to understand it, only to keep it moving. The Jamadang runs 3 streets from your office. Technically illegal. Functionally the only reason anyone in this province still eats. You take a cut for looking the other way, then another for making a problem quietly disappear on paper. Money buys silence. Money buys a warmer coat for Sonny. Money does not buy back the version of you that still recognizes the boy in the rice paddy. You bring Sunhee a whole sack of real rice for the first time in years. Her hands shake around the weight of it. Count the bowls instead. 3, for more than either of you can remember sharing at once. She asks once quietly what this cost you. You give her an answer that's true in every word and still completely a lie. Only the loyal top tenth of the country is permitted to live here at all, and this month, on paper, that's officially what you are. Lit windows stacked 12 stories over streets swept cleaner than anywhere you've stood in your life. Sugar, oil, eggs, rations nobody in your home province has tasted this year arrive at your new door like they were always meant to. The badge on your chest changes here, a second portrait added beside the first, gold-edged now instead of plain tin, a design maybe one in 20 ever wears. A cadre named Ryu clocks it before you've even sat down, the way a rival always spots the exact thing worth envying first. Pyongyang's glass towers hold your reflection at a height the rice paddy never let you imagine. Your desk now approves residency transfers. Who gets to move to this city? Who stays in the provinces you left behind? A woman's file crosses your desk with a bribe folded into the corner, an amount that would have fed your whole village for a season once. Sign it. Don't sign it. Either way, you are now the wall between somebody and the only good ration left in this country. Sun gun, military first, means the army eats before the ministries do, and the ministries eat before anyone in a rice paddy sees an extra gram. You sit in on logistics now, moving grain on a map instead of carrying it on your back. Therefore, you finally understand from the inside exactly whose hunger was always negotiable. It was never yours. It's about to be someone else's turn to learn that. 235 seats in a tiered hall under portraits taller than any building you grew up beneath, and Secretary OM. Your first mentor, older now, still exactly as careful, helped put your name on one of them. You kneel when the hall kneels. You applaud exactly as long as the front row applauds. No longer, no shorter. Precision, at this level, is its own kind of survival. Every file in this building goes back generations, and yours is thinner than most, which used to feel like safety. OM's isn't. His brother crossed the South during the war 7 decades ago, a fact OM has spent his whole career quietly outrunning. His file has grown a page at a time for months. Nobody in this building asks who's adding to it. Some questions cost more than the silence around them. OM invites you to a small, quiet dinner. Just the two of you, the kind he hasn't offered since your first year in the province. He doesn't mention the file. Neither do you. He pours the tea himself, instead of letting the aide do it, an old habit from a life before either of you wore a badge with 2 faces on it. The room goes very quiet before he finally speaks. 3 generations. The file states plainly at the bottom of the last page. OM, his wife, his 2 grown children, his infant grandson. One relative's decision 7 decades old, and the sentence still runs downhill through blood he never chose either. Guards take him from a hall 2 seats down from yours, mid-morning, no announcement, no trial anyone will describe out loud. You clap when the session resumes. Your hands don't shake once. 19 full members, 11 alternates, a globe in the corner. Nobody in this room actually needs to look at twice. OM's seat sits empty for exactly 4 days before someone else fills it, and no one says his name again, ever. Not even Ryu, who climbed into the committee the same week you did, and now sits 2 chairs closer to the front than you. Oversight duty sends you to tour a Kwanliso for the first time, officially to review conditions, unofficially to be reminded what happens below you. Guards along the wall don't meet your eyes. Nobody's do inside a fence like this. OM isn't a camp exactly like this one. Nobody in your car mentions which. The committee holds its own private tribunals, closed doors, no press, no defense lawyer worth the title. You sit on the panel now instead of standing in front of it, which your body understands as relief a half second before your mind catches up and calls it something closer to guilt. A man argues for his life in a room built to look fair and function as anything but. You vote with the room. A reel turns somewhere in this same building permanently on everyone, including, especially, the people sitting closest to the top. Boaboot doesn't stop at the wavering class. It just gets quieter and better funded the higher it climbs. Your own apartment has a room you've decided, deliberately, never to ask about out loud. Some doors you leave shut on purpose. It's the only privacy this level actually offers. The innermost circle kneels in a gilded hall for an audience with the leader himself. A room so far above the Politburo that the Politburo isn't even invited into it. Your badge changes one final time. The rarest design, both faces on a single curved banner, a pin maybe a few hundred people alive have ever been trusted to wear without question. Banquets here run imported wine and courses nobody in your home province has words for. An entire orchestra rehearsed for an audience that might not even attend tonight. Ryu works the room 2 tables over, louder now, colder, closer to the center than you, by exactly 1 seat that used to be OM's before OM had a name anyone said in public. He raises a glass at you without smiling. The chair at the head of every room in this building is empty more often than it's filled. The family doesn't need to sit in it to be obeyed by anyone who's seen it happen once. Ryu finds you by the window, close enough that his voice barely carries. He isn't wrong. You just haven't decided yet whether that's the compliment he clearly means it as. You still flinch when a door opens too fast. I stopped years ago. That's the whole difference between us now. Office 39 runs the family's hard currency. Mining, shipping, hotels, counterfeit bills, $500 million to $1 billion a year moving through rooms exactly like this one. You count a fraction of it under a bulb with no shade, gloves on, none of it registered anywhere a citizen of this country is allowed to see. None of it, at any point, becomes yours. Gold and zinc leave this harbor under manifest, describing them as something else. Insurance claims filed on ships that were never actually damaged. 120 shell companies filing exactly the paperwork Office 39 needs. Ryu stopped coming to these meetings months ago. Moved to special duties is all anyone will say, in a tone that closes the subject fast. You run 3 of the companies personally now. Some nights you do the math anyway, out of habit more than hope. What would cost to disappear, which accounts, which border, which version of yourself would have to die quietly first. You haven't stood in the same room as Sun He in 6 years. A visit from this level draws exactly the file nobody wants opened. There isn't a number high enough. There's also, you're finally willing to admit, no number required. Searchlight sweeps the black water, second pass, closer this time. 3 shapes wade the shallows toward China. A man, a woman, a child held above the current. Your radio crackles, waiting on one word from you. Wire cuts the same cold line across your knuckles. It always has. Somewhere behind your ribs, a boy who once counted ration grains is still standing in your boots, asking the exact question he asked at 11. You still don't have an answer. Nobody crosses this river without approval, comrade. Not even you.